That Triathlon Show 308. Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of That Triathlon Show, the podcast presented by scientifictriathlon.com. I'm your host Michael, and on today's episode I interview Frederic Funk. Frederic is a pro triathlete from Germany with 6 IM70.3/Challenge family titles to his name, and he's currently ranked 9th in the world in the PTO rankings, and he had a strong 5th place at the IM70.3 World Championships in 2022 to finish off the year. In this interview, we discuss his training in great detail with lots of numbers and specifics shared. And just as a little bit of context and background to why I'm now doing this interview with a pro triathlete when that's not something that I usually do, I discussed this at the very start of the year in an episode where I went through the results of my listener survey. And based on those results, I decided that I will be incorporating some interviews with pro triathletes this year to add some variety, add some good case studies of how people at the top of the sport are training. And I just think it will be very interesting for myself and for the listeners as well. However, one thing that I think is really important when doing these interviews, for me at least it is that they are specific and detailed. I don't really have any interest in asking about the training of an athlete and getting very vague answers that avoid going into specifics or even go into numbers. And with this in mind, I think there is no better athlete for this first pro triathlete interview on the podcast than Frederic Funk, who is as transparent as can be with his training. He says himself in the interview that it's kind of his claim to fame. All of his data and training is on Strava, and also he has detailed breakdowns in Instagram posts and on YouTube videos. So he's somebody that I was really, really excited to talk with and invite onto the show. Before we get into the interview, big thanks to our sponsors, Precision Fuel and Hydration. Precision Fuel and Hydration help athletes perform at their best with electrolyte and fueling products and with free online tools, education, and a patented sweat test. You can use the free fuel and hydration planner on their website to get a personalized plan for your carbohydrate, sodium, and fluid intake. And you can also book a free 20-minute video consultation to chat through your plan with the athlete support team. You can get 15% off your first order by using the code TTS23 on precisionfuelandhydration.com. And thank you to Form. The Form Smart Swim Goggles give you real-time feedback in your swim training through a display on the goggle lens. You can see every split, you can see live stroke rate, and even live heart rate through integration with polar heart rate monitors. All of this helps you execute your swim workouts more optimally, and it makes it more fun to be in the water. You can get in-depth post-swim analysis with the Form app, and the app syncs your workouts seamlessly to platforms like Training Peaks, Strava, Today's Plan, and Final Search. You can also build your own guided workouts or use workouts from a vast library of workouts and training plans within the app. Get 15% off the goggles with the code TTS15 on formswim.com/TTS. Now, without any further ado, here's the interview with Frederic Funk. Welcome to the Triathlon Show, Frederic. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing really good.
Where are you at the moment? On training camp or back home in Germany?
Right now I'm in Germany. But already leaving for the next training camp in a few days to Girona for 5 weeks training camp actually.
All right, yeah, that sounds good to escape the winter. We are recording in the middle of February, just for the listeners, as this episode will be released a little bit later. But before we get into all the questions today, can you give an introduction of yourself and tell us more about yourself and your athletic background?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Frederic Funk, German pro triathlete. Currently focusing on the middle distance triathlon, and I'm doing the sport for quite some time already. I'm a professional since 2018, but basically got born into the sport as my parents are both doing it for over 30 years already, and since that did my first triathlon actually when I was already 5 years old, and since that just getting better year by year, and doing it with passion. And my latest results are 5th place at the IM70.3 World Championship last year, and for the next years I'm trying to build up on that and try to be the best in the world.
All right. Well, can we talk a little bit more specifically about that? So, other than being the best in the world, what are your goals for, let's say, for this year, for 2023, and also what does your race calendar look like, if you know it already?
So for this year, I will still be focused on the middle distance, and especially the new PTO Tour series will be a big focus for me. So there I'm try to do all the races, and then next to that, the IM70.3 World Championship is a big goal for me as well. And I don't really have like a my race calendar complete yet. But like I said, it will be the PTO races, and then a few more races built around that as a build up, or to check the shape. Yeah, it will already be, what is it, 4 PTO Tour races plus Collins Cup plus 7.3 World Championships. So it's a good amount of racing already. Yeah, true.
One thing that I think is quite unique about you, or at least you do it to a higher level than most, is that you are really open with your data in the pro triathlon world. And can you talk about why it is that you choose to do this? What is the objective? What is there to gain for you from doing that? Yeah, it's basically my claim to fame. I think like a lot of people are following me, mainly because of that, because they can see what one of the best triathletes on the middle distance is doing in training, and what you have to do to be that good how I am. And the reason why I actually started it was mostly like on one hand because for myself, just logging the training, just that I did it public on Strava. And obviously in the beginning, I didn't have a lot of followers. I also didn't have like a lot of results. I think I started it back in 2014, 2015. So I was still a junior. And obviously I was only doing it for myself, only getting like maybe 2 kudos from my mom and from my dad or something like that. But I always found it pretty interesting when other pro triathletes publish their training and their data, and like it kind of connected me to them more, and I got to sympathize with my idols and with those pro athletes more, who were more transparent and published the training. So I always had this mission that like once I will be as good, I also want the people to like connect with me just via the training I publish. So right now, this is actually the main reason I'm doing it is, to have like, for example, with Strava, another basically social media platform where I can engage with my followers. And it's just publishing the training is just a really good way to engage with the fans and with the community. And I also hope like that most of my followers there think the same, can sympathize with me more, can connect with me more, just because they have this connection over training. I mean, they could copy it, they can do the same. They just have an idea what I'm doing on a daily basis. And I think it's really important as a professional athlete to take the followers along, and not just do the sport only for yourself. I mean, as a professional triathlete, like you don't really have a benefit for the people out there, other than inspirate them and motivate them. And by publishing the training, I think you can do it just better. And when people see that you train so much, then maybe they will also be motivated to go out for a jog or something. So that's the one hand side. And on the other hand, it's just good to be transparent, have no secrets. And anyway, like people are always scared to share their training, like mostly for the reason because they don't want other pro athletes to see what they're doing. But in my opinion, you
you can't like just copy the training or anything anyways, because training is so highly individual. Like for everyone, something else works. So yeah, even when someone would just like copy the training, each session by each session, from me, there will be a completely different output. So I think there's nothing wrong or dangerous by publishing a training.
Yeah, I 100% agree with all of that, like really wholeheartedly, that it is a really good way of engaging with followers and getting more interest in the sport and just a more interaction between professionals and everybody else, whether, well, that could be between professionals and other professionals as well. And I think that would be great. The professionals could help each other get better by talking about what the training they're doing and so on. But also what you said, it doesn't really make sense to copy another person's program, or you can do it, but it's not necessarily going to be the best thing for you. So I do often wonder, do you think that when people choose not to share their data, is it because they think that they have a better program that they're afraid that other people will copy, or is it because they don't really want to tell other people what kind of shape they're in? They don't want people to see whether they're maybe really fit or maybe not as fit as they would like to be. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think, yeah, and there are pro athletes doing it because they think they have a good program, obviously, and they don't want any other or they don't want to share the secrets of that, and maybe they have something really special what they're doing, which really helps them to be that good, and they don't want anyone to see it, which of course I respect. Like, I just want to add that I don't want to push anyone publishing a training, because everyone has their own opinion about that, and I respect also the pro athletes who are not publishing their training for their obvious reasons. And I think one other main reason is also the self-confidence of the pro athletes. Like, I think a lot of pros are not that confident like others think they are, because I think when a lot of athletes are not publishing the training, because it kind of puts a pressure on them to perform in the race. Like, for example, when they have a really great, let's say 6-week training block, hitting one good session after the other. And then obviously they have this pressure because everyone saw it, how they were training and in which shape they're in. And they have this pressure to perform in the race. And some athletes might not be able to deal with that, and they rather train for their own, don't share it, and then they can just perform. And even when they're not performing well, no one knows how they did before, or how they were training, and then no one can say, oh, he was training so well the last 6 weeks and now he wasn't performing well. And the people have less let's say things to hate on, or as less you put out there on social media or on Strava or whatever, as less the people can talk about you, obviously. And then you can only be, when you're not performing well, you didn't publish a training before, then everyone will just say, okay, he maybe didn't have his best day, and then you can only have this bonus when you're performing well. Then everyone is like, oh, he performed really well, he must have been training really good. And so you can't really have so much negative publicity when you're not publishing your training. But for example, I don't really care what the people think there. So like when I'm publishing on my training and then I don't perform well, it's something anyways, like what I would have to think about, if the people talk about it or not. And I had a really good 6-week training block, and then I don't perform well, then anyways I have to think of for myself, like, okay, what did I do wrong there? And it doesn't really matter if the people see it or not. But I think confidence is definitely a big part, which goes with publishing the training. And if you don't have the confidence and can't deal with this pressure of performing in a race, then it's understandable that you wouldn't share all your secrets.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And so as we're talking here in the middle of February, building up towards the racing season, you posted quite recently on Instagram that you were back in the lab doing some winter testing. So can we discuss that? What did your lab testing consist of, and what were the findings?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, it's important we do this test already since 2019, twice per year, always one in the winter after about 2 months of winter training, and then one in the summer in the middle of the racing season, depending on the races, whenever it fits in. And it's important to say that I did this specific test already now for the 7th or 8th time. So it's like when I get the results, I immediately know how I am compared to the years before. And the tests overall consist, like, it starts with a 15 seconds max test on the bike to get the VLA max. So basically, after that you sit down on a chair, and every minute you get your lactate taken, and then it continues with a run test. It's 4 to 5 times 5 minute up until LT2, like threshold. Like the best would be if the last 5 minutes are like just over your lactate threshold 2, and so it's basically a lactate step test, just like everyone I think knows it. And after that, you got a VO2 max ramp on the run. Just increasing the speed or the gradient every few seconds until you can't do it anymore. And then you got the VO2 max ramp on the bike as well. And with those 4 tests, you get all the data you need.
And do you do those tests all in the same lab session? Do you have some rest there in between some of the components, or how is it structured?
It's all 4 tests. I mean, it's never really long tests. It's like the longest is obviously the 4 to 5 times 5 minute on the run, but basically they are only the last 2 steps are kind of hard. But before that, it's mostly still just easy running. So you do all these 4 tests in 2 to 3 hours. You can have as much break as you want. If you think you need more break, you can say, I just need 20 minutes more, and then you would do the test 20 minutes later. But like, for example, after the 15-second bike sprint test, you don't need so much rest. You can just go straight, change clothes, go straight on a treadmill. But that's what is pretty good, I think, about this, that you can just get all the data in just 2 to 3 hours. Of course, it's still like a solid training a day. Then we still always try to taper a little for it, at least the days before and the day after, or the days after, also like for recovery. We try to treat it a little bit like a race, but then it's not a big problem, and you have all the data you need.
Yeah. And I think it's important as well for context here to point out that you're coached by Dan Lorang. So he's been on the podcast before. So listeners know a little bit about we talked about testing with him as well. So it all makes sense. Did you do this? Was Dan in the lab with you doing this?
No, he wasn't there. I always go to High Size. It's like a German company there in a few different locations. And they have this test procedure, and I did this test already before I was coached by Dan, and then we just said, okay, we just continue doing this. So we always just have the comparison to the test before, and always know we always know immediately like where we stand.
Yeah. So what were your numbers, if you can share them?
Yeah, like my thresholds. It's important to say, I think on the run, they count the threshold with 4 millimole. which I personally find a little too high. Like I think my threshold isn't at 4 millimoles. So in the training, when I measure lactate in the sessions, we treat it a little lower than that. And there I had a 309 minute per kilometer. And on the bike, it's, there you can like, you get the VO2 max and you get the VLA max, and they type these numbers in the inside protocol, and then they basically count your threshold, and for there it is for me at 394 watts.
Nice. And how long do you think you could sustain 394 watts if you try to hold it for as long as you could?
I think it always depends, like, of course, like on the time trial bike in aero position. I think not as long, but I mean, I did the test like on a stationary trainer, so not my own bike. But if I like can do it on my own bike and uphill, I think I could do it probably for an hour, I would say. But yeah, if it's like flat, then it's already less probably, and then if it's a time trial position, then it's even less. And anyway, Dan my coach is always really, really careful with that, of course. So when we type in training peaks, when we update the thresholds, we always, like now I had 394, so he types in training peaks, for the threshold, he types in 385. So we always take a little bit back, just to make sure I don't overdo it in the sessions.
Yeah, makes sense. And so you mentioned already you are using it to benchmark your progress compared to previous years. That's obviously one of the benefits of doing testing, and you're getting your thresholds and your zones, training targets, I assume. Is there anything else? Was there anything, let's say, that you found that the test identified some kind of weakness or area for improvement that you now know that, okay, this is something that I need to go and work on?
Yeah, like my weakness is basically the same, which I already since a few years is the VLA max. Like I don't think it's really bad. Like it could be worse, but it's also not where it should be for 3.5 to 4 hours of racing. And on the other hand, my VO2 max is okay. I would say it's obviously not as high as like the Norwegians have, but it's pretty solid. Especially we found out that like my body reacts pretty well for VO2 max training. So when I do like a few weeks of only VO2 max and low intensity aerobic training, then my VO2 max can increase quite a bit. But on the other hand, I always have to be careful to not go too hard also on the VO2 max training. So my VLA max is not increasing that much, because obviously it should be as low as possible for that long racing. And yeah, like now again in this test, which I did now 2 weeks ago, I think my VO2 max was actually as good as ever, but my VLA max wasn't worse, but also wasn't improved since the last time I did the test. So now that we know that, we know what we have to work on before we start racing.
So what was the VLA max and the VO2 max?
So on the bike, the VLA max was 0.5 exactly. So yeah, that's a bit high. I think, for example, pro cyclists usually have, I think, like 0.2 or even lower. And then the VO2 max was like the absolute was 6,200. If I remember well, but yeah, in the winter I'm pretty heavy. It just in the end it came out like was just 80. So just by losing weight for the season, the relative VO2 max will definitely increase there a bit yet. But yeah, that was pretty good, especially because we didn't really do too much VO2 max sessions before the test. So we were quite surprised about that high VO2 max. And I'm also happy with it because I'm not such a big fan of VO2 max training. I prefer the long tempo sessions or threshold sessions. So now that we have the results, I'm looking forward to a nice block of like LT1 and LT2 training.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I also am not a big fan of the VO2 max intervals. Let's go into each of the disciplines and talk a bit about how you train. You can give kind of an overview of what your training looks like. So starting with the swim, what does that look like for you?
So swim is actually I'm actually coaching myself more or less. Like Dan writes me down the distance and the intensity I should do for each day of the week. But the plans I'm always completely writing myself. And since now like almost 2 years, I found out pretty well what works for me and what doesn't. And for swimming, I really need to swim a lots of freestyle. Or lots of specific triathlon training. Like for example, when I swim a lot of drills or medley, it just doesn't help me at all. Just doesn't help me get fitter or faster in the water. But like on the easy sessions, even when I just swim, let's say the simple things like 4x1K easy freestyle, it just really helps me a lot. Gives me a lot of strength, and also on the intervals, I'm always going pretty well with a lot of threshold sessions or below threshold, and also short rest or longer intervals. And maybe if I have like overall a 3K at threshold, let's say 15 times 200. For example, with like 10 to 15 second rest, which is also one of my favorite swim sessions. It also helps me when I just put on the pedals for the last 5, just to get some more strength in the end of the set. And basically for swimming, more simple as better it is for me. And it really helped me a lot. I just got more economic in swimming. My technique got better, especially for the open water. And in the race, I can just get out of the water, and I won't be on my limit, and I can just push the bike from the beginning. Like that's what is important. Like in the race, I always try to swim as conservative as possible and not as fast as possible, because I think especially in swimming, if you swim like 20 seconds faster, it costs you so much energy, but you only gain like 20 seconds. And so rather I try to save energy there, and with the same energy which I could use for 20 seconds faster swimming, I can probably bike 1 to 2 minutes faster. So and that's obviously a bigger impact on the overall time and performance.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And what about, you mentioned the easy swimming, the threshold and sub-threshold. How often do you do, is it quite uncommon for you to do like really hard, let's say VO2 max swim sets or faster sprint sets and so on? Or is it something that you still do somewhat regularly?
No, I still do it. It's always depending on the block, and also if it matches to the bike and run what we are doing in that block. So especially in the winter, when we do a lot of VO2 max on the bike and on the run, I also swim a little harder, of course. But if I do like VO2 max swim sessions, I never go longer than 100 meter, and mostly do 50s. I just have to be careful just to not be in the red zone too much. Otherwise, like my technique gets worse. And like I said, like in the race, it's not about swimming as fast as possible, the 1.9K, but more like as economic as possible. So you need the fast swimming basically only for the start, to get a good position, and of course to put the ceiling high, to get the VO2 max high. But that I'm doing anyways with the bike and of the run and the run. Like the VO2 max also of course impacts the swimming. And but I still do also sprints, especially I do sprints also after a long easy endurance swim, like in the end, just to wake up the body again. Like just like in a run, you do strides. I do some sprints in the water, but I have to limit it for myself to not do more than 100 meter in one. So for example, when I go for VO2 max swimming, I think the most I do is like, let's say the hardest session I did was 2 times 10 times 100 best average. So yeah, that's the maximum of VO2 max I do in the water.
Okay, yeah, well that's a very solid session still. And what about the volume, or how much overall volume are you putting in on the swim, and or how many swims per week do you get that volume?
So in a normal training week, it's about 5 swims per week, and the volume this way is between 20 and 25 kilometer on average.
Yeah, let's move on to the bike. How do you structure your bike training?
So the bike training I really, and also the other training, but especially in the bike training, I have so much trust in Dan, because he's also coach of the Bora Hansgrohe cycling team. So he really has a big idea about that, and it also works for me really well. Like maybe we have to say before that on a bike, I think I'm pretty talented. So it was always like that since I'm doing triathlon. That never mind what I'm doing on a bike, I somehow keep getting better. And now under Dan, in the winter we try to focus on VO2 max. But of course, like I said, there I have to be careful to not to overdo the VO2 max, just really stay in that VO2 max zone and not get too anaerobic. And then as closer we get to the season, we do some low cadence threshold work a lot, and like longer LT1 sessions. And then we get close to the race season. Of course, a lot of race pace. So it's actually pretty simple. No secrets. And there the volume is about I'd say like 400k in a normal training week, or like between 12 to 15 hours. And in the winter I actually do 100% on my road bike, and just like end of March, beginning of April, I switch to my TT bike, and then I do like 90% from that on my TT bike, and 10%, which is recovery, I do on my either my gravel bike or my road bike. A couple of follow-up questions on that. So when you do the VO2 max sessions during winter, do you do both longer intervals like 3-4 minutes and shorter 30 seconds to 1 minute, or is there a preference for one over the other? So my preference actually would be the longer intervals, like for example 4x5 minutes, just best average or something like that, or like VO2 max. But with Dan we almost never do that. We mostly go for this classic 3x10 times 30 or 40-20, so 40 seconds hard, 20 seconds easy. You basically spend almost 10 minutes then in your VO2 max zone. So yeah, that's the classic session we do most.
Yeah, and when you do those low cadence threshold sessions, what is an example of that kind of session, and also what is an example when you do the race specific sessions? If you can give one example of each.
So when it's like threshold, like we always usually have like between 45 and 1 hour 15 minutes total spent in that zone per session. And we do that intensive bike sessions like twice per week in a normal training week or normal training block. And and it's usually always like, for example, really simple, like 4 by 15 minutes or 5 by 10 minutes, 5 by 12 minutes, like low cadence, threshold. Sometimes we also mix it up, like especially in the in race season, like 1 week before the race, I have a standard session, which is 45 minutes at race pace, and then 2 by 10 minute low cadence at threshold. So faster than race pace also. And for the threshold, I found that it really helps me also sometimes to do that indoors on the TT position, because outdoors it's pretty tough always logistically to do it in TT position. And if I'm pushing like 370, 380 watts, and I have to go with a cadence of 50 to 55 RPM, it's logistically not easy to find a place where you can do that, because in the flat you would need a really, really high gearing. And if it's getting like too hilly or too steep, you can't really keep the aero position well. So it's sometimes pretty good to do that on a home trainer. You can just go the consistent pace and cadence, and it really helps me a lot also to get used to the aero position when I do the strength session indoor.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the race specific workout, if you can give an example of that.
Like for example, that 45 minute race pace, what we do the week before.
Yeah, sure.
But also, it's basically the same like the low cadence threshold sessions. It's also like can be like 3 by 20 minute race pace, or it's often like a little faster than race pace. So if we count my race pace at like 340 watts, then we might do the session at 350 to 360 watts. Because obviously like 3 by 20 minutes, for example, is 1 hour. It's also like, it's easier than 2 hours in the race spent at 300 to 340 watts. We don't really do more than 1 hour, 15 minutes spent at race pace or threshold. And of course, it's always really important to feel the sessions really well with the nutrition I also take in the race.
Okay, perfect. And then finally, moving on to the run, if you can describe your run training.
So it's the same like on a bike. On the winter, we focus on the VO2 max. Mostly we do that with hill sessions. So 30 seconds to 1 minute, and from there we do quite a lot of reps. And then as we get closer to race season, we also do sometimes longer hill reps, which is actually one of my favorite sessions. For example, 5 by 8 minute uphill, just under threshold. And it's a lot of fun because I grew up in the mountains, so I really love running uphill. And then we go, and when we go into the race specific part, we do just these classic sessions like 1K reps or 2K reps, or also like, which is a classic session, is 4 by 3K. Or when we do 1K reps, it's often like always a block of 3, which is always like 1 below race pace, 1 race pace, and 1 at threshold. And so basically 1 to 3 progressive, and this block of 3 we do like 3 to 5 times.
Yeah, and how long would the recoveries be in between the reps in those blocks?
Oh yeah, like so in the VO2 max in the winter, like on the hills, it's just always like jogging back down, which is usually like a minute or something like that. And for the longer intervals, like logistically for the long hill reps, when you do it on a treadmill, you can do short recovery of like 2 minutes or less. When you do it outside, it's little bit more difficult unless you have a really long hill, when you can just always run like a little bit back down and then even more up. And for the 1K reps, it's 1 to 1.5 minute recovery, but the recovery we always do running, so we never do like standing recovery unless I'm checking my lactate. But we always try to keep running during the whole session.
Yeah. Okay. And running wise, what is your volume like?
So running, I would say it's the lowest from all compared to other pros. Let's say, so on the swimming, on the bike, I think I'm there where others are, but on the running, I have average volume of like 60 to 70 kilometer per week, which is not that much. Of course, the main reason is we want to stay consistent and we don't want to get injured. So we're just trying to be careful and build it up really slow. On the other hand, both Dan and me know that that my body reacts really well to high volume. So we want to keep that as a joker for later in the career when nothing else works anymore. We just push up the volume, and then I'm pretty sure getting even better in running. And of course, like, running is also my weakness. It's no secret when you look at the results. But I think I have a lot of potential there. But we just try to not rush the things. Like, we are really focused on building a long-term career. And if I ramp up the volume now on the run, then we don't know if I would progress now for the next years for sure, but we don't know if it would be good if I still want to progress in like 5 years or 10 years from now. So we really try to get the most out of it with not so much volume. And then when we realize that my performance stagnates, then we will start to ramp up the volume slowly.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart approach, and good to have that kind of patience. Can we talk through your last full week of training? So again, we're talking on the 16th of February, so that would have been the second week of February, more or less. Can you run us through the overall volume of the week, and then basically go through Monday to Sunday, just briefly what you did each day? So
maybe the last week might not be the most interesting, as it was a recovery week. So
we can do this week maybe if you have this week could be fine.
I think like the week before that might be interesting, because I was also still in training camp in Mallorca. Yeah. So I'm just gonna go through that once. Okay, yeah. So Monday is always recovery day. So there I only swim. In this case, it was 5,000 meter of easy swimming. I don't remember now which was the session, because usually if it's like easy session, I don't really write it down. But probably was a pretty simple plan with long endurance, like I said before. It was like 5K swim on that. That's it. Nothing more on that day. Then on Tuesday, the first session was a swim again, which was VO2 max. The main set was 10 times 50 meter at 55 seconds exit. It was always 35 meter VO2 max and 15 meter easy. And for that, I needed 34 seconds. Then it was 8 times 50 meter at VO2 max, so the whole 50 meter at 50 seconds exit. For that, I needed 31 seconds. And then the last set was 6 times 100 meter, 75 meter at VO2 max and 25 meter easy at 130 exit. And for that hundreds, I needed 108 so including the 25 easy in the end. So it was overall a 4K swim set. Then I had a bike session of 2 hours and 37 minutes in the mountains of Mallorca, and it was with a 3x20 minute at LT1, and I did those at 336, 349, and 350 watts on the road bike and uphill. So that wasn't too hard. I actually measured lactate, and it was at 1.4 after the first one and 1.6 after the last one. So yeah, after that bike session, I had a quick run of the bike, which was 20-minute, 5 kilometer. Faster aerobic pace. We tried to do a little bit more run of the bikes this winter and summer, just because we realized that last year my running, the main problem was always the first 10 kilometer after the bike, and the second half was usually really good. So yeah, we just try to get more used to running off the bike. So maybe I get into the running better on the 70.3s on the races. Then on Wednesday, I started with a morning run with 4x 2,000 meter LT1, which I did on trails. So just did it basically for feeling. The pace was there about like 340 per kilometer, and between that was always 400 meter of easy jog. I didn't measure lactate or anything, so really just did it for feeling and heart rate. And then we had a easy aerobic swim, 5,000 meter, and a 2.5 hour easy ride. Again, through the mountains in the winter, always try to collect as much elevation as possible with the road bike. And then on Thursday, we had a long aerobic day, starting with a 1 hour, 14 kilometer easy run, and then a 5 hour and 20 minute easy ride. Friday was rest day again, with a 4.5K easy swim and a 33-minute easy run with 10 by 100 meter strides in the end to get ready for the next day. Then Saturday started with a harder run. I remember I felt really, really good on that run session. The main set was it was a fartlek. The main set was 10 times 1.5 minute, just above threshold, and a 3-minute float. So like the 3 minute between were also at 3:45 pace, and the 1.5 minute threshold were between 3:10 and 3:05 pace. So pretty solid fartlek. Overall 1 hour 10 and 19 kilometers. Then I had a cool down spin on the bike, just 1.5 hours, really easy, and a 4.5K easy swim in the evening. And then the Sunday was pretty packed with a 45-minute and 10K morning run, and then a 5K harder swim, or not too hard, was like a tempo swim, where the main set was 5 by 200 meter, like tempo to sweet spot. Just have to add that we swam short course meters there. So when I'm in Germany or I usually swim long course meters. So that was kind of nice to swim quite some faster times. It's good for the confidence to swim short course meters. I had a 5 by 200 at 2:45 exit. I swam at 2:25 to 24 and very controlled. And then 2 by 50 meter VO2 max at 50 exit with which I swam in 31 second, and then 300 meter easy with pull buoy. And this whole set I swam 2 times, so 2 times the 5 by 200 plus 2 times 50. And then I finished with easy 3 by 300. And Then we had a 3-hour bike session in the afternoon. I remember that my DI2 got empty on the warm up, so I had to turn back, charge it for 20 minutes, and then get back out, do the session. And it was 3 hours with 4x12 minute at threshold and low cadence, and the cadence should be between 45 and 55.
Yeah.
So that's quite low. And I did the 4x12 minute at all at like 370 watts. And then I again had a short transition run of 15 minute 3.7K. And that was it for the week. So it was actually 28 kilometers of swimming.
Yeah.
It's 7 hours 20 minutes. Then on a bike was 405 kilometer in 14 hours and 51 minutes, and was 7,336 meter of elevation gain. On the run was 73.5 kilometer and 5 hours 3 minutes. Overall was 27 hours and 14 minutes. And the training stress score in Training Peaks was 1,456. So that was pretty much one of my higher volume weeks. So it doesn't get more than that throughout the year.
Okay, yeah. And one more follow-up on that. When you were talking about your easy bikes, what would typically your average power be for an easy aerobic bike ride when you go and ride in the mountains in the winter?
So, I don't like to go too easy on the bike. Like I try to go, of course, keep it in the easy zone, but I also don't want every of my rides like being a recovery ride. So I still like to push it a little up the hills or something like that. Of course, it shouldn't get any hard, and it should always be easy. But like average power through the mountains is typically something between 210 and 220 watts, which normalized power is then obviously like between 240 and 250 watts, because like up the hills I'm usually going with like 270 to 280, and then of course just roll down the hill.
Yeah, that makes sense. And on the bike, so do you do a lot of work on aerodynamics? Have you done wind tunnel testing or any other kind of aero testing, and is that something that you continuously work on?
Yeah, for sure. So first I have to add that I'm pretty like flexible in terms of aero position. So the first time I sat on a time trial bike, I didn't have too much idea yet about aerodynamics, but of course I thought of it. So I just put all the spaces out in the front and have just like and put the saddle to like just over the cranks. So just a really, really aggressive aero position, but I could keep it for the whole 90K. So I never had a problem with like keeping positions or anything, even though it might have looked really uncomfortable from the outside. But I'm lucky that I'm quite stretchable in my hip flexors and in my back. But yes, instead, of course, I learned quite a lot about aerodynamics, and you always continue improving it. Like I think for now, I have found a pretty good position, which actually mostly found out by myself, just by testing it myself and going out there. I usually have some Strava segments I'm riding like out and back. And then just checking the speed to power ratio, and that's how most of the times I check like equipment or position. But of course, I'm also going try to go to the wind tunnel or onto the track with my sponsors to check the material. Check when they have new stuff, and always try to get as fast as possible. And I think my CDA is pretty sure one of the better ones in the pro field, especially when I see my power and compared to other pros who publish their power. I always one of the guys with the lowest power, but always one of the fastest. So I think there I'm on a pretty good way.
Yeah, just looking at the 7.3 World Championship results, you were the second fastest bike split with 2 hours and 40 seconds. And as people know, that was in St. George, and that is not an easy course. There's a lot of elevation there, even though it is a course that you can ride fast on. So it shows that you definitely have, but of course, power has to be there to ride at that speed, but also aerodynamics. Do you have is there something that has surprised you a lot in terms of aerodynamics, like something that you did not expect, that, oh, this position was actually fast, or this piece of equipment was faster than you thought, or something like that?
So right now it would be pretty logically for me, but when I first time, like in the beginning, I thought as lower you are in the front, as faster you are. But then when the first time I actually took some more spacers under the aero bars, and then actually my aero position even improved, or my CDA even improved, and I was riding even more comfortable. Like in the beginning, it was for sure surprising me, but now that we are more advanced in terms of idea of aerodynamics and everything, it's of course pretty logically, because just the hole between your arms and your head actually gets smaller, and also like your back is more straight, and just overall the air has a better flow at your body, and of course even better when the helmet is matching to the position as well. But I think like in the beginning it was surprising to me, but now when you think about it, it's actually not so surprising at all.
Yeah. And some equipment questions. What are your preferred racing shoes, and what wetsuit and tri-suit are you racing in?
I mean, of course, the stuff I'm sponsored by, and what I'm wearing is also the stuff what I really prefer. So like I always try to go with sponsors only where I'm really happy with the products. So on the run, with the new carbon shoes, and wetsuit. I'm sponsored by Hoop. I'm really happy with their wetsuit. It's really flexible, and it really suits me really good. And also like tri-suit, the Castelli one is also really fast in terms of aerodynamics, and also really comfortable.
Yeah, and you meant when we went through your week, there was a training camp in Mallorca, and you spent a few weeks there. How many weeks were you on Mallorca in this recent training camp?
So in the recent one, it was 2.5 weeks, but I was already for starting my training in December. Was the first 3 weeks of the season, or of the training. I was already there. So overall, it was five and a half weeks now in December and January.
Yeah. So can you tell us more about what do you like about training in Mallorca? But also, you mentioned that you are going to Girona. So what is it? Tell us more about Mallorca, but also other places that you like going to for training camps, and what are the pros and cons of the different places that you go to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as a triathlete, of course, it's not that easy to find a perfect place for training, because you need a swimming pool. Ideally, you have a 50-meter swimming pool. You need perfect cycling loops, and you also need trails or track or nice running routes. So all that together, it's never so easy to find the perfect training location. But Mallorca is really nice in the winter months until I would say April. After that, in the summer months, is probably on the one side it's getting too hot, and on the other side it's way too crowded and traffic full. but because it's like a famous tourist location in Europe, especially also for Germans. And but in the winter month, it's amazing there. It's really cycling paradise. You have beautiful roads through the mountains. You can also ride flat if you'd like. And there's just no traffic at all, or like barely any traffic. And the people living there are also really, really nice with cyclists. They are used to them. A lot of pro cyclists are also training there because it's just so perfect for cycling. I stayed in Palma Nova, which is a little bit west from Palma de Mallorca. And there's also like a 25-meter indoor swimming pool. And the running was also pretty good there. And the only thing in the winter months, like in December, was really lucky with the weather. It was actually 20 degrees and sunny, so I could ride short-sleeved and on the bike. But in January, we already had it was already a little bit worse. It was really cold in the morning. And 1 week we also had a lot of rain. So that's the only thing in the winter months. You can be a bit unlucky with the weather. And if that's something, what's more important, that you can ride in really warm weather outside in the winter months, then for Europeans, the best location is probably the Canary Islands, like Lanzarote or Fuerteventura, which is pretty famous amongst the triathletes, which I am not a big fan of because I find the cycling there is pretty boring. For me, the priority is more the cycling routes, and if it's a few degrees colder, it doesn't really matter for me. It's okay if I have to wear a little bit more, but have better cycling routes. So that's my number one priority when I'm searching for training locations. But on Sunday we are leaving for a 5 weeks training camp to Girona, and Girona is also pretty famous now for triathletes, but it's mostly because the triathlon training there is close to perfect. You have the 50-meter pool. You have really nice running trails, and also the cycling there. You can go for a 4-hour ride and not see a single car if you're lucky. So it's really amazing, and also the lifestyle there next to training in Girona, the city is. It's pretty amazing. You have a lot of good coffees. You have now a lot of other triathletes training there. You can meet up for sessions, meet up for coffee. So it's always nice to come back there, and I always really, really enjoy the time there.
And do you use altitude camps as well? Is that something that you've done?
Yes, we started it 2 years ago now, and we try to do two times per year, 3 to 4 weeks altitude camp. And before the first race, we go up to Sierra Nevada, which is also really good for training. I really like it up there. Others might say it's really boring, but I don't know. Because of the mountains, I really feel good up there and don't find it boring, even when you have to do a lot of indoor sessions. But you also have a 50-meter pool on 2,400 meters altitude, which is pretty amazing. It's really tough for sure, but it also helped me a lot. That's why we keep doing it. I really benefit from altitude. And then in the summer we always try to go a little bit lower, like around 2,000 or under. Like I was already in Livigno, or last year before the 70.3 World Champs, I was in Utah in Park City. It's like north of St. George. That was also pretty cool for training. And it was about 2,100 meters of altitude. And I really enjoy altitude training because even when you actually have to go easier, so the training somehow feels easier, but when you're up there for quite some time, you really feel the benefit. And then when you come down, for me, it's always the first days are not as good. Like when I come right off altitude, I'm not performing so well. But after 1 week, I really benefit from it. And then it usually goes on for about 3 or 4 weeks where I really have this altitude boost.
Yeah. When would you, if you are using altitude in preparation for a key race, when would you come down from altitude before that race?
So that's also a thing what we learned last year. So the first time I went up to altitude, it was 3-week camp in Sierra Nevada, and of course we had no idea how it would benefit me or how we should do it. So we took some risks and also tried out a few things. So we took one race right after altitude. So I was basically coming down and flying to Challenge Gran Canaria. And it didn't work out well for me. So I felt really flat on that race, on that day. I don't want to say generally that it wouldn't work for me, because it also could have been that it was the first race of the season, and that's usually something which I'm not good at. Like I need one or two races to just get into racing and to get a little bit more tough. So we don't know if it was the altitude, but since that we didn't really took that risk anymore. And then I had like 3 to 4 weeks after altitude, I really felt like I was flying. So they also had really good results. So that always at every altitude camp seemed to work pretty well for me. So last year we tried to do the same. We tried to go down 3 weeks before the first important race, which was the championship in Samarine. But then I had 1 week after 1 week coming down from altitude, I actually had an Olympic distance in Germany, and we didn't really matter actually how I performed there. It was more like to get into racing, to have not the important race as first race of the season. But then on that day, I was actually really benefiting from the altitude. I really felt it, and I was flying over the course, and I won the race pretty easily. And then I was also looking back at the last year data. So how I was actually performing like 1 week after coming down from altitude. And also there, the training data looked really promising. So we found out that like 1 week after coming down from altitude is actually working really well for me. Like from there, that's usually the start for me, that I'm really getting this boost from the altitude. So we aimed for the same for the 70.3 World Championship. When I was going to Park City, I was up there for 4.5 weeks, and then coming down 1 week before the race. But then sadly, I didn't have the altitude boost we hoped for. And at the end of the season, we tried to analyze it, why I didn't have it there and why I had it in the beginning of the year in Sierra Nevada. And we found out that just like Sierra Nevada is always the end of the winter block. So when I'm going up there, I always have a really, really solid base, and then I'm hitting this altitude block, coming down, and 1 week later I'm ready to hit the races. But when I was going up to Park City, I had a big racing block before that, so I didn't really have this aerobic base, which means probably the altitude was hitting a little harder on me, and I would have need longer time to adjust again to sea level and get this boost. And I was even feeling it, like, because after the 70.3 Worlds I had off season, and then I had like off season of 3 weeks when I started training again, and I felt like the starting training never felt so easy. Like I really felt that I had this altitude boost 4 weeks later. Just the problem was there was no race or anything. And so we just really have to be careful when we are doing like a race 1 week after altitude, that I really go up to altitude with a really solid base. So for example, now again in April I will have a 3 to 4 weeks altitude camp again before the first race, But of course, now in the winter, I'm training a lot of, getting a lot of base in, and then it should work out fine coming down 1 week before. Otherwise, we would always go for the safe option of coming down 3 weeks before. But I actually would love to try once again, maybe do a race right after altitude and see how that works again.
Yeah, but that's a lot of really interesting thoughts, and really interesting to hear about how you found that.
Yeah, I maybe should add that
base that you have.
Yeah,
maybe
should add about that. It's like really the only thing we try to measure it. We also try to take blood volume and the hemoglobin and everything, but we couldn't really find anything to really measure the altitude. But it was only all about feeling. And so the altitude training is so individual and everyone reacts different for it. So I think like my approach wouldn't work like that probably for anyone else, or not for everyone else. And so it's really just about trying out, and you can't really explain how or why. So we really found it out just by testing and experimenting.
And what do you use when you're at altitude to control the intensity and the stress? Do you rely on heart rate or RPE or lactate, or a combination of all of them? Because obviously, if you push the same power or the same pace as you do at sea level, then that could be too much of a stress.
It's a combination of all of them. So the most important factor is always feeling. But in altitude, your feeling can quite different to the numbers. So for example, for me, on the run, I can't really use my feeling because it can feel pretty easy, but it can already be above threshold. So there it's pretty important that I measure the lactate and use my heart rate, and just always compare those numbers and just try to aim for control the intensity with the lactate. So an altitude is definitely the place where we use lactate the most, and the main reason why I bought myself a lactate meter to check it. So I think there you have the feeling only is not enough. Like, but for example, on sea level, I could pace all my sessions with feeling, and I could tell you pretty spot on if that's threshold or not. But on altitude, on a bike, it would work. I think the feeling is usually matching my lactate, but on the run, it's always really interesting that I'm kind of running almost easy, but my lactate is already at threshold. So there I really have to be careful and control the intensity.
Yeah. What about heat training and heat preparation? Is that something that you have done when preparing for different races that will be in hot conditions?
Not really yet. So the only heat race I did, or at least tried to do, but it wasn't too successful in the end because I had a pretty bad day, was the PTO US Open in Dallas last year. But we didn't do like a specific heat prep for it. I mean, I was doing like 3 to 4 sessions per week, the month or like 4 to 5 weeks prior that race, which were like I was trying to adapt to the heat and was also going to the sauna after sessions and that stuff. But we weren't really getting into it that much or that deep. I don't know if it would have helped better for me to prepare the race, but I think in the end it was other reasons why I didn't feel so good on that day, and it wasn't the heat. So I also can't really tell if it worked or not. But other than that, we never really had like a heat race with high humidity or anything. Only the European heat. But I'm not really preparing for it other than sometimes doing my sessions midday, and then of course you have to go a little slower, check lactate, check heart rate, always being careful with the intensity in the heat, and of course drink a lot. But we never really have done like a deep heat prep for any race. so maybe once I start in Kona, we will definitely do that probably.
What about Singapore, the PTO Asian Open? That it's in August, I think. I think Singapore is always hot and humid, right? So
do you
think
true.
you'll do anything specific for that?
Yeah, it might be the 70.3 World Championship in Lahti in Finland is one week after that. And for now, we actually said that we focus on the 70.3 World Championship. So we wouldn't do, like, if I would do Singapore, it's also not sure. This way, it's not sure if that I'm doing it, because I think it might be tough to combine those two races, because you have two completely different time zones. You have big travel to Singapore and back, and then you have the 70.3 World Championship the week later, and also the heat race. Would take a lot from you. So. This might be a reason to actually skip the Asian Open this year and focus on the 70.3 Worlds. But if we do Singapore, then not with like too much heat prep, because the focus is rather on the 70.3 Worlds the week later.
All right. Yeah, makes sense. So I want to do a little quick fire round with just getting some numbers and data from you, if that's okay. So if there's something that you don't have available or don't really know, then just pass on it and we move on to the next one. But first, let's start with your total training hours in 2022, and if you also have your percentage of swim, bike, and run for those hours.
I actually wrote it down in my notes. Here it is. So overall, I had 992 hours of training. From that was 240 hours and 30 minutes in the water, 491 hours and 13 minutes on a bike, and 223 hours and 54 minutes on the run.
And your best VO2 max ever measured?
It was now in the last test was 81.
And the best 400 meter swim time, or if you have done another distance time trial more commonly than whatever time trial you usually use?
So I think my best 400 meter time on long course meters was last year in a lactate step test. So like the FIFS 400 was 4:32. So I think I could swim faster if I do like only a 400 meter time trial. But I think once I did a 900 meter short course meters time trial, which was 9:01.
Yeah, so that would be fast. I'm not going to do the math, but the listeners can do that. And 7.3 best 7.3 bike power.
It was at Challenge St. Pölten 2021. I had 340 watts average, and it was a heli course, so it was 360 watts normalized power.
And your best standalone running performance?
Like I did a 5K time trial in 2020, like during the COVID time, which was 14:47, and 10K. I had just above 31 minutes but it was just with like beginning of the season with like 6 weeks of training in 2019, I think. So I think I could do faster than that, especially when in that time when I ran at 14:47, I think I could have done a pretty good 10K as well. But that's the only two times I have actually from running. Or 3,000 meter, I have 8:36. That was actually, I had 1 year where I did a few track races. So that was 3,000 meters. But I don't really have more running times than that.
Yeah, no, those are great. And your typical carbohydrate intake in grams per hour in racing?
So I try to average 120 to 130 grams per hour, but I try to take most of that on a bike. So basically on a bike, I take 150 grams per hour, and then on the run a little less. So I have this 120 to 130 grams per hour average.
And the typical sleep duration per day, including both nighttime sleep and naps?
You want to know what I aim for, or you want to know what I actually get?
Well, you can give me both. Give me both.
So yeah, I am wearing the Oura ring to track my sleep. But I always try to aim for at least 8 hours of sleep time, and that's definitely also enough for me. Like I don't really need more than that for to have a good sleep. But yeah, I think an average, I can also check that. Like, yeah, the average over the last months was always like 7.5 hours.
Right. Yeah. And then the final question here in this segment would be, when and what was your first ever triathlon? You already said that it was when you were 5 years old. Do you remember anything about that triathlon?
Yeah, it was a junior challenge in Roth. Yeah, I was 5 years old, and it was like, I don't even know the exact distances, but was for sure just like 50 meters swimming. I couldn't do like any freestyle yet, so I just swim like breaststroke. And then I remember that my parents could help me with the transition. So I think they helped me put on a shirt and my helmet, and helped me get onto my bike. And it was like, I don't know, maybe 2 kilometers of cycling, and then from transition to just running into the finish. So, but I think because I was just 5 years old, and my age group didn't exist yet back then, like for that young. So I was starting against I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. But I actually got third in my division. I have no idea how many started.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, that was pretty. I don't really have a lot of memories still that, but I have some pictures I can watch back, and yeah, looks pretty funny.
I think it's one of the most amazing things in triathlon when you're at a race and they have these kids triathlon, and especially the very youngest kids
for sure.
age groups when they start. It's so inspiring, and it makes you really happy to see that, for me at least. So yeah, one question now, not related to your own training, but just if you would give 3 pieces of advice for the listeners of this podcast on how to improve their triathlon performance, what would that be?
So the first advice I would give is eat enough, because especially a lot of amateurs always try to eat as healthy as possible, but they completely forget about getting enough calories in. And of course, it matters what you eat also, but the first thing is to really get the calories in you also burn on that day. Otherwise, you recover poorly and you get injured, sick, or overtrained. So that's also like advice for pro athletes as well. And so always eat enough. And then the second advice is to prioritize sleep and recovery. Amateur athletes also working full time. I have a big respect when they like get up in early morning, they do a training session, then they hit their 8 hours work day, and then they do another training session. And but it sounds pretty tough because you have barely any recovery time. So it's often better to do maybe just one session per day and use the other the free time you have rather for recovery than for a second session. Probably you would benefit more from that than from training more. And the third and most important advice is to have fun. I think it's a hobby. Of course, it's a lifestyle, but yeah, I think the most important thing is to have fun. And even when you are a really ambitious amateur or age grouper, having fun should be the number one priority, because when you have fun, the success and the performance comes from itself.
For sure, yeah. And finally, the rapid fire questions. So take just one sentence to answer these. And the first one is, what's your favorite book or resource related to endurance sports?
Related to endurance sport, I'd say it's the internet. So when I read books, it's not related to endurance sports.
And what's an important habit that you have benefited from athletically, professionally, or personally?
I mean, it's just overall the structure I have in my day. So it just keeps me going. So like every habit to get up in the morning, have my coffee, and then just get along with my training day.
And finally, who's somebody that you look up to or that has inspired you?
It's not an easy question, because for me, like, I don't really have that one person which inspires me or I look up to, but the first ones who come into my mind are my parents, for sure, because they taught me to love the sport, to love this lifestyle, and just having fun and do what I love. So, and they really inspire me day by day. But on the other hand, like, it can be my fiance finishing her first long distance last year, which also really, really inspired me. So yeah, it can be someone else every week. I mean, I'm getting easily inspired by people just living their passion.
Yeah, no, that's great. And finally, you're on Instagram and on YouTube and on Strava. I think those are all great places to follow you, and I will have the links in the show notes. Is there anything else, any other places people should follow you, or anything else any other messages to the listeners or anything that you want to mention before we close off this interview?
Yeah, no, like you said, Instagram, Strava, and YouTube. These are my main three social media platforms where you can follow me along. And yeah, other than that, I have nothing to add. Just wish everybody good training, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Fred. It was great to talk to you. Maybe I'll see you in Lahti or in another race. And I really appreciate you taking the time to coming on, and also I definitely appreciate you being so open with your training and all of your data. And I think it sets a great example, and I hope that more athletes will do the same, so we can all learn from each other. Thank you for that.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Thanks a lot for the conversation and for the interview. And yeah, looking forward to meet you. Thanks.
I hope that you enjoyed that interview. Please let me know any feedback that you might have from this first pro triathlete interview on the podcast. The best way to give me feedback is to email me, michael@scientifictriathlon.com, and that's Michael with a K. If you have suggestions for athletes that you want to hear from or other things I should ask and bring up in these interviews, let me know that as well. I'm very happy to receive any kind of feedback. You can find the show notes for the episode on scientifictriathlon.com with links to Fredric's Instagram, YouTube, and Strava, as well as the interview that I did with Dan Lorang, his coach, back in episode 175 of the podcast, and one of the most downloaded episodes in the history of the podcast, I believe. Next Monday, we have a Q&A episode on bike training, and it will be co-hosted with Lachlan Kieran, Scientific Triathlon coach. By the time you hear this, we will have already recorded that Q&A, but be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on Instagram, and you will always get invites to send in questions for future Q&As before we record them. And obviously, I can say at this point that the next one will be on run training, so if you have questions, feel free to email them to me already, and I will store them safely. If you want to improve your triathlon performance and want some help to achieve your goals, big or small, then consider working with a scientific triathlon coach or a training plan. We have options for athletes of all different levels, from beginners to professional, and we would love to work with you and discuss if and how we can help you on your triathlon journey. Find out more and contact us if you're interested on scientifictriathlon.com. And finally, big thanks to our sponsors, Precision Fuel and Hydration, that you can find on precisionfuelandhydration.com. Use their free fuel and hydration planner to understand your fluid, electrolyte, and carbohydrate needs, and get a specific and effective race strategy, and book a free video consultation with the team if you want to refine it further. Use the code TTS23 at checkout for 15% off your first order. And thank you to Form, that you can find on formswim.com/TTS. Improve your swim training with real-time metrics like pace, stroke rate, and heart rate, and advanced post-swim analysis. Use the code TTS15 to get 15% off the Form Smart Swim goggles. Thank you, as always, for listening. Keep training smart and keep loving triathlon.